What's up, Planeswalkers? Welcome back to the Only Line channel, where I cover cool and interesting decks, share knowledge, and discuss everything Commander.
Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful holidays. And I'm excited for this next year of Commander and to continue growing this channel and growing my community with all of you. So please, if you want to keep up to date with my content, consider dropping a subscribe, give this video a like if you like the deck, and I'm excited to get into this deck tech. This week's deck tech is brewed around Inti, Seneschal of the Sun. It's a 2-mana 2/2 human knight that says whenever you attack, notably Inti doesn't have to attack, just whenever any creature you control attacks, you may discard a card. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains trample until end of turn. And then it has the second triggered ability. Whenever you discard one or more cards, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until your next end step. Both of Inti's abilities are triggered abilities, meaning with Roaming Throne in play, they will both trigger additional times. And the way this ends up working is because the second ability triggers when the first ability resolves, when you discard the card, it ends up being 4 times as much value. So let me run you through this. So you attack with a creature. Inti is going to trigger twice because of Roaming Throne. So then first trigger will resolve, you discard a card, put a counter on that creature, it gains trample, and then you get to impulse draw 2 cards because you've discarded one. So Inti's second ability will trigger twice now, so you get to impulse draw twice. And then the second ability, or the second trigger from the first ability, will resolve, so you can discard another card, put another counter on the same or a different creature, give it trample, and you get to impulse draw 2 more cards. So you actually end up discarding 2, but impulse drawing 4. So, I wanted to brew Inti, but I wanted it to be human tribal, and I've never really seen a mono-red human tribal list before, so I thought I would give it a shot. I think there are enough humans that we can make it work. And as I was going through the mono-red humans that we have available, I noticed quite a lot of them like to deal with artifacts, and, we're going to be discarding cards in this deck to get value off of our commander. And red isn't really good at utilizing the graveyard unless it's with artifacts. So this is a human tribal artifact deck. I think this is a really unique build. Like if you look at Inti's EDH rec page, human tribal is not really on there. So I thought this was a pretty cool build, and I'm excited to share it with you all. Alright, I'm going to start off by going over our Wincons so you guys get a sense of what this deck's going to be doing and what our main goals are. So we have Goblin Bombardment. We're going to be going pretty wide, making a lot of creature tokens, so being able to turn those creatures into direct damage to use as removal or to help close out the game is going to be really useful. Impact Tremors, again, we're making tokens, so we want the damage. Metallic Mimic, it's a human and it's an artifact, as well as buffing up all our board. Passionate Archaeologist, we're going to be casting a lot of spells from exile, so dealing extra damage whenever we do that is going to be great. Also, our commander's only 2 mana, so he'll be in play pretty much all the time. Reckless Fireweaver, we're going to be making a lot of treasure tokens, playing a lot of artifacts, so this guy's going to be putting in work. Combat Celebrant, this guy sadly doesn't work with Roaming Throne, but still, extra combats for 3 mana on a human, can't ask for more than that. Rising of the Day, gives our legends a little buff, provides haste to all of our creatures, very useful utility card. Shared Animosity, when we're going wide with humans, this is one of the best go wide type hole Wincons out there. Martin Stromgald, I know this guy's pretty pricey. If you can't afford this, you can use like a coat of arms or something like that in his stead, but he's a human. I just felt like he was really thematically perfect for this deck, so he's here. Vanquisher's Banner gives a buff, gives us draw whenever we play humans, and Holga Relentless Rager. Those are our main Wincons. Next, I'm going to go over our token makers. There aren't too many token makers in red that make human tokens, sadly, so I had to settle for the best we could do. But we have Hangerback Walker. Our commander can put additional counters on this guy, so he'll keep growing, and then we're going to want to have artifacts on the battlefield to sacrifice to Goblin Welder or Goblin Engineer effects, so this is a great way of just guaranteeing we have those artifacts to sacrifice. Loyal Apprentice, human, makes Thopters. Handmar Garrison, this one does actually make human tokens, so this is definitely one of our better token generators. Horn of Gondor also makes human tokens. This card can make a really large board state. It's basically Krenko, but you have to pay 3 mana, but that's okay, because Krenko is worth it. We have Seasoned Pyromancer. Doesn't make humans, but we're going to get additional impulse draw when we discard from this guy. Notably also, with Seasoned Pyromancer, if you don't have any cards to discard, you still get to draw 2 cards. So if you play this guy when you're empty-handed, it's just a draw 2. You won't get the additional impulse draw, but that's okay. Jaxus, the Troublemaker. So this guy is going to be card advantage for us as well as token generation. So we can tap him, discard a card, and we get to make like a Blitz token of one of our other creatures. So when we discard the card to activate the ability, we get an impulse draw from our commander, and then when that creature token gets sacrificed at end of turn, we get to draw a card. So it is card advantage for us to use the ability, and we're making tokens. So Jaxus just felt like the best of these kind of like red copying things. We have Molten Echoes, great for any red typal deck. And then Riders of the Mark. This is a new one from Lord of the Rings set, and this is perfect for red human decks. It costs less based on the number of humans we have. It has haste, so it can attack right away, and then at the end of every turn, it just bounces back to our hand and makes a big board of humans, and we can do that every turn, because it's going to, reduce its own cost. So, very powerful card. Now, going over our card advantage, we have Reinforced Ronin. He may not look like card advantage, but when you consider he's going to be triggering our Vanquisher's Banner and our Impact Tremors and our Reckless Fireweaver over and over and over every turn, very useful. Also, he's going to go back to our hand. We can always channel him, which will be card advantage because we'll discard him, draw a card, and then Impulse Draw with Inti. We have Skull Clamp. Any deck that goes wide is probably going to want a Skull Clamp. Conspiracy Theorist, human, that makes it so when we discard, we're going to be able to play that card right away, so we're essentially not discarding anymore, we're just impulse drawing for free. Horn of the Mark, any creature heavy deck can get a lot of use out of this, it comes down early, generates value. What we really want in this deck is we don't want to run out of cards in our hand, because we can't discard to impulse draw if we're out of cards in our hand. So this is going to be good to make sure we're having a steady flow of actual cards in hand to fuel our impulse draw. Ichor Wellspring, we play Goblin Engineer and Goblin Welder, so this is a staple with those, just going to be drawing us cards, keeping our hand full. Brass's Tunnel Grinder, also great with those goblins. Breya's Apprentice, this guy really overperforms in this list. He's a human, so he triggers all of our human synergies. He's also an artifact, so triggers our artifact synergies. He makes an additional Thopter when he comes in. We can loop him really easily with the Goblin Engineer and Welder and stuff. And then he can sacrifice artifacts for more impulse draw or to buff up our creatures. Farid, Enterprising Salvager, this guy's an artifact token generator, as well as allowing us to sacrifice our artifacts in order to discard then draw, which as we know is card advantage here, because we discard a card, draw a card, and impulse draw one card. He can also goad creatures in a pinch, which can always be useful. Imperial Recruiter, this guy's great, finds whatever we need. Usually we're honestly going to search up Goblin Engineer, because there's a really cool line with Goblin Engineer that I'll get to later. Jessica's Will, I don't need to tell you guys that this card is busted, especially in mono red. Magus of the Wheel, just a way to refill our hand. We're going to get empty-handed pretty quickly in this deck. This deck's really low to the ground, so having a human that can just, refill our hand is very great. Mishra, Excavation Prodigy. So this guy is card advantage as well as ramp because we have lots of artifacts, so we are fine discarding those artifacts a lot of time. And then we have Prophetic Flamespeaker. This one's really cool in this deck because we can buff him up with Inti so that it's easy for him to get in. And then anytime he deals damage to a player, we get to Impulse Draw, and since he has Double Strike, we get to do that twice most of the time. So, pretty fun. Quicksmith Genius, looting, Impulse Drawing. We have artifacts entering the battlefield. This guy generates a ton of value in this deck. Ryan Sinclair, another one that's great to load up with the counters from our commander. Just gets us a free Impulse Draw play every turn. Also, remember, Roaming Throne is going to be doubling all of these triggered abilities. So, very good synergy here. We got Squee, Goblin Nabob. This is just really useful to be able to discard to our Inti every single turn, make sure we always have a card to discard, and we get that Impulse Draw for free, because it will come back to our hand. Valakut Awakening, MDFC, great card, draws us cards. Roaming Throne, that I already discussed, this is like the best card in the deck. It's just going to double pretty much everything we're doing. It's really ridiculous, honestly. I can't believe Wizards printed this. Alhamret's archive, we have a lot of like loot draw, so that's going to turn those loot draw into real card advantage in our hand as well as impulse draw card advantage. So this is just going to, once we get Elhammerit's archive in play, we're never going to have to worry about getting down to an empty hand ever again. And then, as I mentioned already, Vanquisher's Banner is great card advantage in this deck. Going over our ramp, we have Currency Converter. This card puts in a ton of work. Anytime we discard a land, we get to impulse draw, and we get to then make a treasure with our Currency Converter, or we can make creature tokens. So, very useful. Soul Ring, of course. Arcane Signet. Charming Scoundrel. This one also can be card advantage in a pinch. This one's just like a great utility card. Double triggers with Roaming Throne. Very useful. Enterprising Scallywag, we're going to descend every turn very easily, so this is just a 2-mana 2/2 that makes us a treasure every turn. Guild Artisan, we want to be attacking pretty much every turn, and it shouldn't be too hard as we're growing our creatures with our commander, so this is just going to make us 2 treasures every turn. Liquid Metal Torque, this is the best mana rock for red decks, guaranteed. It turns all of your artifact removal into permanent removal, or non-land permanent removal, which we need, because red sucks at removing enchantments. It's literally just like Chaos Warp and maybe one other thing that can do it. So Liquid Metal Torque, I consider like an auto-include in any mono red deck for sure, 100%. Prize Statue, again, when we're doing Goblin Engineer, Goblin Welder stuff, Prize Statue is just really good, gonna make us a lot of treasure. Ruby Medallion, I don't need to tell you why this is good in a mono red deck. Captain Lannery's Storm, double triggers with Roaming Throne, makes us treasure, we can buff her up with our commander, give her trample. Cursed Mirror, now this is the line that I wanted to go over with Goblin Engineer. So with Goblin Engineer, we can play it, it gets to tutor an artifact, we tutor Cursed Mirror. We activate our Goblin Engineer next turn, sacrifice an artifact, bring in Cursed Mirror as a copy of Goblin Engineer, we get to tutor up something else. And now we can keep looping that other thing we tutor, either an Ichor Wellspring or Prize Statue, whatever you need, with the Cursed Mirror, with our Goblin Engineer, and keep tutoring more artifacts, more utility pieces into our graveyard. Goblin Engineer and Cursed Mirror is one of my favorite like synergies in Magic. It's just so powerful, it feels so good every time you get to do it. If you have an artifact deck that's in red, and you don't run Goblin Engineer with Cursed Mirror, you should change that. It's a great card. We have Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's going to make us a 2/2 goblin that when it attacks we get treasure. We like treasure in this deck. Also it lets us loot, and then it's another kind of like Jaxus-esque token generator on the back. So this card just, I think it doesn't see a lot of play in Commander because it's expensive from standard, but this card is amazing. It puts in so much work. It just fills so many roles in every deck that I put it in. Herald's Horn. We run 28 humans in this list, so it will draw us a card about a third of the time, a little less, but that's pretty good, and it's going to reduce the cost of all our humans, very nice. Professional Facebreaker, we are attacking, we're going wide, we like treasures, we like impulse draw. This guy does it all. And that does it for our ramp package. Alright, now going over our protection and our recursion pieces. We have Goblin Welder, which I have mentioned a few times already, as well as Goblin Engineer. Dolmen Gate just guarantees that we can always attack with our creatures, no matter what. Very useful. We got Tybalt's Trickery. Can be used to stop opponents or to protect our own things. Deflecting Swat, just, bash that thing away that you don't want pointed at your stuff. And Felden of the Third Path. This guy is awesome. We have a lot of creatures with ETB triggered abilities that can double trigger with Roaming Throne, so with this guy we can just reuse those every single turn, as long as they're in our graveyard, which it's easy to get them in our graveyard because our commander lets us discard cards. Alright, now I'm going to go over our interaction. We got Soul Guide Lantern, just a great little utility artifact. We can sack it to draw a card in a pinch and then recur it with all of our artifact recursion stuff, or we can use it to exile our opponent's graveyards. Vandal Blast just wipes away all artifacts we don't control. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. This card has quite a few amazing targets in this deck. Like, not only can we exile our opponent's cards from our opponent's graveyards, we're going to have lots of creatures with +1/+1 counters because of our commander, and we have quite a few creatures with really good activated abilities that I'll throw up right now. We got Acolyte Hybrid. This one you can use to destroy opponents' artifacts when necessary. It combines with Liquid Metal Torque to be repeated removal, as well as we can use it as like a whenever this guy attacks, sacrifice an artifact, draw a card, which honestly comes up fairly often. We have Captain Ripley Vance. This is a mono red deck, low to the ground. Very easy to play 3 spells in 1 turn in this deck, so this girl can, grow. We can also grow her additionally with our commander, so that once we do trigger her, we're getting extra damage. We got Chaos Warp. Every single mono red deck needs to play this card, because we just don't have other options to remove enchantments. Sad red player moment. Magus of the Moon, some light stacks, draws removal away from all your other important targets, because people are going to want to kill this so they can turn their lands back on. And finally we got Blasphemous Act. And finally, I'm going to go over some utility lands we have. We run Ash Barrens. Being able to basic land cycle this, get a mountain into our hand that we can play right away, and Impulse Draw for 1 mana is pretty amazing. Buried Ruin allows us to rebuy an artifact. Castle Embreth, Forgotten Cave, similar to Ash Barrens, but we just draw a card and Impulse Draw a card for 1 red. Gyro Reach Sanitarium, Mines of Moria, we got Scavenger Grounds, Sokinzan, this one's a token generator that also Impulse Draws us. Strip Mine to answer those, Cabal Coffers, Nykthos, Gaia's Cradle, etc. Urza's Saga, we have a lot of great artifacts we can tutor up with this. We have Skull Clamp, we have Soul Ring, we have the Currency Converter. So, Urza's Saga puts in a ton of work in this deck. Valakut the Molten Pinnacle, any mono red deck should probably play this. We run 21 mountains, which is a little light for it, but it comes on in the late game and it puts in work. And finally, War Room. Alright, and that's going to do it for our mono red humans and their toys list. Let me know what you guys thought of this deck in the comments. I think it's pretty unique. I don't really see mono red humans on EDH Rec anywhere. And, mono red artifacts is something we've seen before. But the human twist is definitely new. So let me know if this is up your alley. This deck is really low to the ground. It gets out really fast. It's been really fun in playtesting. So if you guys like the list, I encourage you to try it out, adapt it to your own playstyle, make some changes. And thank you guys.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Remember to like and subscribe to my OnlyLands for the spiciest deck content on the internet. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you next time.
Walking down the street, everybody